Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Open the hood, we have to pull the release inside the car. It's just inside, right around your left knee on the driver's side. We need to release the secondary or safety release. Just kind of feel around for it. This one is right here. Squeeze up. I'm going to remove these two top nuts that hold on the appearance cover. They are 10 millimeter, so I'm using a 10 millimeter socket, ratchet, and extension. They should just thread off real easily. There's our appearance cover. It's got some foam inside that's just for noise. Just keeps the noise down from the valve train. These are your 4 coil packs. We need to disconnect the electrical connectors, then remove the 10 millimeter bolts that are holding them into the head, and we can pull them right out. Push down on the lock and remove the connector. These can be brittle, sometimes they break. The lock does. This procedure will be the same for the other 3. Use a ratchet, extension, and 10 millimeter socket to remove this 10 millimeter bolt. Put this bolt aside. Now we need to move the coil. You might have to wiggle it because there is a seal in here, and just break it free. Once it's free, it should come right up. There's our coil pack. Remove all the coils. I'm going to unbolt this 10 millimeter bolt that's holding on this harness bracket. I'm going to kind of be gentle with this harness. That'll be okay. I'll have enough space to maneuver the valve cover out. So this harness can stay right here. I just needed it loose from the valve cover. I'll loosen this 10 millimeter bolt holding on the harness. You might just need to hold that out of the way to get to these, but that will stay right there. I'm going to take this vent hose off. Take a needle nose pliers, squeeze the spring clamp. Just kind of push it up the hose. There it is. So once it's over that, take a right angle pick, just try to work it under the hose here, while pulling at the same time. Sometimes you can get under here. It helps to break the seal. Try to work around the hose, break the seal. Eventually it'll come off. I'm going to remove or loosen the clamp on the PCV valve. Might be able to squeeze it or use needle nose pliers, but basically you have to push it up and over, just like that. And work that hose off the PCV valve. There are 6 bolts around the perimeter of the valve cover and 2 nuts on studs, and then 2 bolts in the center. So it's a total of 8 bolts, and then these 2 nuts. Once you've removed all those, the valve cover should come off. I'm going to start with the one in the back corner. You can see it's covered with some oil. Reach back here so I don't drop it. These are 10 millimeter head bolts. I'm using a 10 millimeter socket and ratchet to remove them. I'm just going to take note of where I took these out of in case they're different lengths. This one is in the back corner. Just going to go along the edge and find all the bolts. So these two bolts are different. They're much longer and have washers on them. With all the bolts and the nuts removed, you need to take the valve cover off. It might be stuck on there. So I'm going to remove the oil cap. The oil cap aside. Try to reach my fingers in here. Pull up. Might need a little persuasion, so I'm going to use a rubber mallet. You don't want to damage the aluminum. I'm just going to tap on it. There it goes. Lift this out of the way. Gotta get the cover off of these studs. And there it is. And actually, the valve cover gasket didn't come up with the valve cover. It stayed stuck to the top of the engine. Sometimes the valve cover gasket can stick in this little channel. You'll have to dig it out carefully to not nick the surface. But it's so dried out and baked on, it actually stuck to the head. So I should be able to just carefully peel this all off. Hopefully it doesn't disintegrate too much more. This is actually easier that it's stuck to the head. A lot of times this gets stuck in the valve cover and then it takes a lot of work to dig it out. I'll lift that out one piece. We're gonna leave this engine alone for a few minutes. I'm just gonna put some towels over the top of it. This will prevent anything from falling into the engine. So normally you take off a valve cover and this gasket will remain stuck in the groove. You know, ours came out stuck to the engine, so it would be stuck in this groove and it's all dried out. You're gonna have to come in with a small pick or something and try to lift it up. And then you're probably gonna wanna use some sort of plastic prying tool because you don't wanna damage the aluminum. You wanna be really careful with using a flat-bladed screwdriver. But you're basically just gonna have to get in here and just work it out if it's stuck, and that can happen sometimes. Luckily this one is all right. It's gonna come right out for us. So we'll just remove it and throw it away. Of course there's the middle part that is broken, so we're gonna take those out too. Now the next step before we install our new gasket, we wanna clean out all these grooves so that it seals well. So just take a paper towel and get in there. You can use that plastic tool and we're just gonna clean in here. If need be, you can take some brake parts cleaner, spray it in here. Take your paper towel. And just repeat this all the way around, all the openings, and then you'll be ready to install the new gasket. Before you reinstall your valve cover, with it off the car, it'll be easy to clean. So we're gonna wipe down all this excess oil. You're gonna need some paper towels. You can start by wiping off the heavier stuff with a paper towel. A lot of it might come off. If need be, you can use some brake parts cleaner and the rag, or you can use some like dish detergent and like really scrub it down because that'll cut the oil and grease, but then you'd have to dry it off really well before you put it on the engine. But basically just clean this all off just so it looks nice and fresh like that. So when you put on the new valve cover gasket and you reinstall the valve cover, if it does leak again, you'll be able to tell. Since we've got a parts washer available to us, we're going to clean off the valve cover with a parts washer. Now our valve cover is clean. We'll take our new valve cover gasket. It can only go in one way. Lay it in place. And just kind of push it down. It'll sit into place. That should stay in place while I install it. I'm gonna pull these rags out of the way now. Take our valve cover. I've got to capture it over these two studs first before it will sit down. I'm also gonna have to slide it underneath this little harness holder. So I'm gonna lift up, get this underneath. Try to capture that there. And then spin it backwards a bit. Pull this harness out of the way. Now I'm going to capture these two nuts right here. Right now I'm just going to thread everything in by hand. I'm going to put the two larger bolts that are from the center. I'll get those started. Now the rest of the bolts are the same, so I'll just go around and install those. I'm going to start with the center two bolts and tighten them down evenly and work my way out from the middle. These are steel bolts going through an aluminum valve cover into an aluminum head, so I don't want to over tighten them because you can crack the valve cover or strip the bolt holes in the head. And I basically just want to compress the valve cover gasket enough so it seals. And I kind of feel it. Those are getting tight. And then I'm going to stop. I'll do the same over here. Now I'm going to work my way outwards. Reinstall this bolt that was holding this harness down. It's a really small bolt. It's only holding this bracket on, so just give it a little bit of snugness, and that's tight enough. I'll lay our harness back down for the coil packs. And I'm also going to install the small bolt that was holding it. So it's a small bolt again going into the aluminum head. As soon as I feel it get tight, I will stop. I'll reinstall the coil packs. Gonna put them in place right now. Come back, put the bolts in. I'll get the bolts in here. I'll tighten these down. This is just a steel bolt going into the aluminum head to the aluminum valve cover, just to hold the coil pack in. So as soon as you feel it get tight, just stop and reconnect it. Unfortunately, our plug was really brittle and the lock broke off. So I'm just gonna push that on there. Reinstall the oil cap. Put our PCV hose back on. Put the clamp back over. You may need to use pliers. I was able to get that with my fingers. Put this vent hose back on. Clamp back over it. Now just do your best to clean the oil that's run down the side of the head here from the leaking valve cover gasket. You can use whatever degreaser you prefer or brake parts cleaner. And then I'm going to take a rag and just wipe it up as best I can I'm not going to worry about it too much. It would be nice to have it clean so you could see any potential leaks if they do happen again. You also want to clean up anything that might be dripping on the exhaust and causing a burning oil smell. Now I can reinstall the plastic engine cover. Wiped it down with a rag to clean some of the dirt off of it, make it look a little nicer. Get it lined up over those studs. It'll sit right down. Reinstall the nuts. Actually, just do these hand tight. They don't need to be super tight. The job is complete.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.